podcast is a production of Widener Law Commonwealth in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. For more information, visit commonwealthlaw.widener.edu/podcast. Now here's your host, Julie Sheldon.
Welcome to Widener Law Commonwealth podcast. Today we're here with Eden Mandrell. She is the director of our Career Development Office. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And this is sort of the second part in a little bit of a series that we're doing with the Career Development Office. And this podcast will focus on resume building. So first off, how can the CDO help with resume building for our students?
Sure. So I've been spending the past several months meeting with students and going over their resumes on a one-on-one basis. And then I'm happy to help the students revise and format and draft their resumes. We also have a couple of workshops coming up. I don't have the dates in front of me, but we will be doing a resume workshop for both the day students and the evening students. And we will also be doing a cover letter writing workshop for both the day students and the evening students. And those will be in the next 2 weeks.
And so let's jump right in. What makes a good resume, or even better, what makes a bad resume? Sometimes that can be just as interesting.
Well, it's sort of like pornography. You know it when you see it. And I don't know if that's the right answer, but I do think that, I've seen some really great resumes, and really great resumes are resumes that are not distracting. They're resumes that I can get all of the information I need in a very clear and concise way. So resumes that are overly wordy, overly verbose, resumes that have a lot of formatting issues, are resumes that are just not good, because I don't even want to start looking at them, because I don't want to have to dig for the information that I'm looking for. So I always suggest to students that because they are baby lawyers, they should start with their education. The education should always be at the top, because they don't have the experience yet that an attorney or a law firm is going to be looking for when they're hiring them. So they should start with their education. They should be very clear about when they're graduating. They should be very clear about their honors, their activities, any publications that they have. Then the second listing should be their undergrad, and the same holds true if they have any honors. Students should always know that cum laude, magna cum laude, and summa cum laude should always be italicized and should never be capitalized, and they should always come directly after their degree. Mm-hmm. Then they should have their honors and activities and memberships, and any on-campus jobs that they have should be listed there. The next thing should be their employment. It should have the name of their company or their firm or where it is they've worked, but their most recent listing should be first. They should have their title, and then they should have the dates, and then a summary of what they've done, and so on and so forth. And at the end, they can have an activities and interest and or volunteering section. But in that activities, interests, and volunteering section, it should be very clear as to, that the activities that they do should be professional, but they could have their personal interests in there, and they should be interests that show initiative, that show leadership, that show organization. They should be very noteworthy interests, something that people will want to discuss. It's their talking points, and they shouldn't be I like going out with my friends. I like
the soccer team. Maybe not.
Yeah, well, I don't know that one is necessarily a bad thing if there's not a lot of other substance there, but they shouldn't be sunbathing. Okay. They shouldn't be doing my kids' homework, something like, yeah. You sort of know it when you see it. If it's something that shows that they are thoughtful, that they have some interest and substance to them, that people are going to want to talk about, then they're okay to talk about. Then they're okay to add to their resume. Okay. But, resumes that are just a school with no activities underneath and just, a couple of employers that seem to be sort of dated, those resumes are going to go nowhere. Mm-hmm. I always tell the students you need to have some substance to your resume for people to have something to talk to you about.
Right. And now what about length? Obviously, I went to school for communications, but one of the big things that I was told was not to have it really go over one page unless you have the the substance and the career to kind of back that up. What are your thoughts on length as our students start to go into their careers?
Yeah, I get to ask that question a lot. I have no issue with a resume being more than one page if there's a valid reason for it to be more than one page. If they are listing under their employment, their bullet pointing, drafted brief, researched issues, attended court hearings. If they are very general and they're bullet pointing them and that drops a resume to more than one page, I say absolutely do not do that.
Okay.
If they've had a prior career, if they have a lot of employment history, 100% it can be more than one page.
Okay.
But there has to be a reason for it.
Okay. And we talked a little bit about the activities, but can you give examples of things that would turn off employers on a resume? What are some of the complaints you may hear out in the world from employers about some of the resumes that they receive?
Yeah, some of the complaints that we've heard in the past may be that they don't really know anything about somebody based on what their resume says. Mm-hmm. Again, I think I referenced somebody was telling me that they heard somebody had sunbathing on their resume, and that just shows that they're, sort of lazy and vain.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a time and a place for everything, and you can love sunbathing. I have no issue with that, but it shouldn't be on your resume because it's not really an activity that requires any special skill or any special interest. Activities that are of interest, I was meeting with a student the other day, and he was trying to figure out what types of activities he should put on his resume. And we just had a conversation about things he liked to do in his spare time. And I get that you're law students and that you really should be studying and going to class and potentially working in an internship or an externship, and that's pretty much it nowadays. But, this student had a lot of volunteering in his background, and he was restoring an old car, and I thought that was pretty cool, and that was a touch point. Things that you should probably stay away from are politics.
Okay.
I suggested to a student that he could put that he was interested in political theory, but maybe not put the political theorists there, and let that be a talking point. I think that you should probably not put video game playing on your resume. I mean, if that's what you do in your spare time, good for you, but it's not something that shows a lot of initiative. Unless you are a video game developer or you're a gamer who has won huge tournaments, something along those lines. Yeah. So I think you just have to be judicious in what you are saying as an interest. And you know what? When in doubt, ask somebody else. Ask somebody what they think, if they think it would be considered a professional or talking point.
Okay. Can you give examples of some of the best things that you've seen on a resume and what makes someone stand out? Are there particular ones that you've seen in your career where you're like, wow, this is just awesome? Because you've probably seen your fair share of resumes.
Yeah, throughout my career, I've seen a lot of resumes, and there are some things that I think that are pretty cool. I think something that all employers like are federal clerkships. Okay. I know those are not easy to get and not abundant, but employers love federal clerkships. I also think that positions where you have done something substantive, you really should enumerate that on your resume and make sure that people see that you've actually had hands-on substantive experience, whether it be, helping with a jury trial, whether it be helping put together a deal. Really talk about the nuances of that. Things that I like to see are lots of really great leadership activities, whether it's being the editor-in-chief of a law review or another type of journal, whether it's being the leader of a student organization, whether it's starting a student organization or starting a business. I think that those types of things are really, they show initiative, they show drive, they show tenacity, and employers like to see that somebody is willing to work and work hard. But things that have really stood out are really nothing particular in terms of specific jobs, but it's really getting in depth into a particular job.
And can we talk a little bit about the actual mechanics and the aesthetic look of the resume? I mean, I've known some people that actually have their resumes designed by a graphic designer and some people who, do not. So can you talk a little bit about can the CDO office help with grammatical bulleting things, the layout of your resume? I mean, there's 1,000 different or more different types of layouts for resumes. Are there ones within the legal field that our students should be using?
It's an interesting question. I have my own preferences.
Okay.
And I think that every lawyer out there has their own preference, and I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer to what the proper format is for a resume. If a resume is very clear and concise and shows your employment history and your education history without somebody having to dig for it, that's okay. The CDO has a couple of different resources that I like to point students to, and one of which is the job search guide. We have edited and revised it. I think it used to be called the job search manual or something along those lines. It is posted online on the Widener Commonwealth law site, the website underneath the CDO and Career Services page. I think if you look under the Students tab, the whole manual, the whole guide is there. There are some sample resumes in there, and you can actually follow a template of a resume from somebody's first year in law school through graduation.
Okay.
There are different types of resumes in there depending on where you work. I think that a resume should just be very clear about who you are, where you went to school, and what it is that you've done. I like resumes that don't have columns. I think that those are harder to edit. Okay. I like resumes that look pretty, that are, if you are going to push your employment dates or graduation dates over to the right, they should all be justified. They shouldn't have different right justifications. Everything should be the same font. You should use the bold and the italics function judiciously. I think that a resume that has too many bullet points, I referenced bullet pointing earlier. I don't have an issue with bullet points so long as they are specific representative cases or matters that you've handled. I think that if you overuse bullet points, they just become a distraction. Okay. Resumes, if I'm looking at a resume, I should want to read that resume and not try to look at it like it's a jungle and have to try to find the information.
Not digging through everything. And we had a quick conversation off mic about when our first year students are able to come and see you, and for us that's a little bit later in October this year. But when is a good time for students to come to the CDO office to say, here's my resume, could you take a look at it, point me in the right direction? Is there a time that's too early or for them? Or
there is no time that's too early. We are not allowed to work with any first year students per the ABA rules and guidelines until after October 15th. We will be doing our first year CDO orientation at Professional Development Day this year on October 23rd, and we will be starting to set up appointments with all the first years. They actually have to meet with the Career Development Office after October 23rd. Okay. And we set up all of those appointments through Simplicity. The first years will be getting their login information for Simplicity on October 15th. Okay. We suggest that students come and meet with the Career Development Office as soon as they can. We like to sit down and talk with them about who they are, what they've done, what they want to do after graduation, and the steps that they need to take to get to that dream employer. And part of that is going over their resume. I ask that all students email me their resume in addition to uploading it to Simplicity. If they put it on Simplicity, that's great. I can look at it, but unless they email it to me, I can't revise it. Okay. I need it sent to me in a Word format. But absolutely, the sooner the better. And I say that all first years, get your resume done. during your first year, because once you have a really good template, it's very easy to add on to your resume and update on a regular basis. And I tell, as a recruiter, I would always tell lawyers, have a really good, if you have your resume set, you can add your employers to it, but you should also have a representative transactions matter list, or you should have a representative litigation matter list, that as you go through your career and you handle different types of matters or you represent different clients, you can add to that list. So that's something that will be ongoing throughout your career, and it's something that you should start while you're in school so it doesn't become this huge project later on in life.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for answering my questions about resumes and resume building. As you know, I do like to end with a fun question for our podcast. So as we kind of transition into a new season, what are some of your favorite fall activities?
Well, I love apple picking, and I like doing all the stuff with the apples afterwards. This year is the year I'm going to try to make an apple pie. I've never done that.
Okay. Good luck. I have trouble with the crust. I can't get that right ever.
But I absolutely love fall because I love Halloween. We like decorating our house and being sort of silly with that. And I also like it because it's literally right before my birthday. So it's always a nice lead-in into my birthday. And, who doesn't
Happy
love
early
being...
birthday.
Thank you. Who doesn't love being, hopped up on sugar for their birthday? So
Right. Well, thank you, Eden, so much for joining us today. And
thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for our listeners. Please keep an ear out. We will be having another podcast coming up on internships and externships.
Widener University Commonwealth Law School is the Pennsylvania capital's only law school, with 3 specialized centers of legal scholarship through its Law and Government Institute, Environmental Law and Sustainability Center, and Business Advising Program. Widener Law Commonwealth offers an exceptional learning experience that is personal, practical, and professional. Visit commonwealthlaw.widener.edu for more information.